The cafe buzzed with the usual afternoon rush. The smell of fresh pastries filled the air, coffee machines hummed, and quiet conversations blended into a soft background. Behind the counter, Daniel worked with focus and care. His apron was neatly tied, his smile warm, and every customer who walked in received the same cheerful greeting. "Welcome in. How are you today?" Daniel was different, but in the best way. At just 21, living with Down syndrome never stopped him from showing kindness to everyone he met. He polished the tables twice just to be sure they were clean. He remembered regular customers' names and their favorite drinks. For many, Daniel was the heart of the cafe. The glass door opened with a sharp swing. A man in a dark suit stepped in, expensive watch, polished shoes, phone in one hand. His eyes scanned the cafe with impatience, as if everything inside was already wasting his time. "Victor." He walked to the counter, tapping his fingers against the wood. Daniel turned with his usual smile. "Good afternoon, sir. What can I get for you today?" Victor stared at him, frowning. "Is this a joke?" he muttered, loud enough for others to hear. "They let you take orders?" Daniel blinked but held his smile. His voice was gentle. "Yes, sir. What would you like?" Victor shook his head, smirking. Unbelievable. He ordered a cappuccino, rolling his eyes while speaking into his phone about some big deal he was closing. Daniel carefully wrote the order, his hands steady, though his cheeks flushed. He didn't respond to the mockery. He simply prepared the drink. At a corner table near the window, a man wearing a cap and simple jacket watched quietly. He had arrived unnoticed, blending in with the crowd. His eyes followed Daniel, and when Victor's harsh tone cut through the cafe, the man's jaw tightened. Few recognized him in that moment, but anyone who looked closely would have seen the unmistakable face of Cristiano Ronaldo. Victor continued, grumbling. When Daniel set the cappuccino on the table with a polite, "Here you go, sir," Victor lifted the cup, took one sip, and slammed it down. "This is cold. Can't you even make coffee, right?" Daniel flinched but quickly picked up the cup. "I'm sorry, sir. I'll make you another right away." A couple at the next table exchanged glances. The barista at the back froze, unsure whether to intervene. The cafe fell quieter, all eyes shifting toward Victor. But Victor only leaned back in his chair, speaking louder. "This is pathetic. First they hire slow people, and then they expect us to pay premium prices. What a joke." Daniel's hands trembled as he worked the machine again. "Still," he whispered softly, "I'll make it better this time." From the corner, Ronaldo's eyes darkened. He hadn't moved yet, but his silence was heavy, like a storm waiting on the horizon. Victor's voice carried across the cafe, sharp and dripping with arrogance. He scrolled through his phone while muttering, "If this is the level of service, no wonder places like this never last." Daniel returned with a fresh cappuccino. He set it gently on the table, hands trembling, but smile still present. "Here you go, sir. I made sure this one is extra hot." Victor took a sip, then smirked. "Better, finally." His eyes flicked up at Daniel. "But look at you, smiling like you've done me a favor. Do you even know how ridiculous you look in that apron?" Daniel blinked, swallowing his hurt. "I just want you to enjoy your coffee, sir." Victor chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Enjoy with you serving me? Tell me, do they keep you here for pity or for cheap labor?" The cafe went still. Conversations halted. Even the barista in the back set down her cloth and stared. A mother covered her young son's ears. No one spoke. No one moved. Daniel's chest rose and fell quickly, but his voice stayed soft. "I love working here. I'm happy to help." Victor laughed out loud, a cruel sound that bounced off the walls. "Happy to help, please. People like you slow everything down. If I ran this place, you'd be out the door in seconds." At the corner, Ronaldo's fingers drummed against his cup. He hadn't revealed himself yet, but every insult tightened the coil inside him. His eyes followed Daniel's quiet struggle, his patience thinning. Daniel tried to hold steady, focusing on clearing the nearby tables. But Victor wasn't finished. He snapped his fingers sharply. "Hey, don't wander off. Wipe this table properly. You missed a spot." Daniel stepped closer, nodding. "Of course, sir." He wiped the table again carefully. Victor sneered. "Pathetic. You can't even clean. What do they teach you at that special school of yours?" A gasp came from somewhere in the cafe. A man at another table shifted in his chair, but his wife touched his arm, shaking her head nervously. Daniel's hands slowed. His eyes glistened, though he tried to blink it away. His smile flickered but didn't break. He whispered, "I'm doing my best." Victor leaned forward, lowering his voice but still loud enough for the room. "Your best will never be enough. Remember that." The cafe air turned heavy. It was no longer just coffee and chatter. It was thick with tension, embarrassment, and quiet anger, and then, finally, movement. The man in the corner removed his cap, setting it on the table. The sunglasses followed. Conversations erupted into hushed whispers. Recognition spread like fire. Cristiano Ronaldo was standing. The whispers spread quickly. "It's him. That's Cristiano Ronaldo." Heads turned, phones tilted discreetly, and yet the room remained hushed. Victor noticed too. His smirk faltered for a second, but he quickly masked it with arrogance. "What? You all act like you've seen a ghost." He leaned back, pretending not to care. Ronaldo didn't speak right away. He walked slowly toward the counter, every step measured, his gaze steady on Daniel. The cafe seemed to hold its breath. "Are you all right?" Ronaldo asked softly, his voice calm but carrying enough strength to silence the room further. Daniel nodded quickly, forcing his smile. "I'm okay, sir. Thank you." Ronaldo placed a hand on the counter, his eyes never leaving Daniel's face. "You don't have to pretend. I saw everything." Victor scoffed loudly, breaking the stillness. "Oh, come on. You're not really going to take his side, are you? He messed up my order twice." "That's not my fault." Ronaldo finally turned his head, locking eyes with Victor. The calmness in his stare felt heavier than anger. "Your order was fine," Ronaldo said evenly. "What wasn't fine was how you treated him." Victor chuckled, though it sounded forced. "Please, don't act like you know what it's like to deal with incompetent staff. You live in mansions, you play football, and people worship you. Stay out of this." A murmur rippled through the cafe. Some customers shook their heads. Others stared at Victor in disbelief. Ronaldo didn't move closer, but his presence filled the space. He looked back at Daniel, who was clutching his cloth tightly, eyes down. Then he faced Victor again. "You know what I see?" Ronaldo said slowly. "I see a young man who wakes up every morning and chooses to work. He chooses to smile at strangers. He chooses patience when others would break. That's not incompetence. That's strength." Victor shifted in his seat, but he laughed again, trying to regain control. "Strength? Don't make me laugh. Strength is power, money, status, not wiping tables in a cafe." Ronaldo tilted his head slightly, almost with pity. "Then you don't understand strength at all." The cafe was silent, everyone hanging on the edge of each word. Even the coffee machines seemed quieter, as though the entire space belonged only to this exchange. Victor leaned forward, voice sharp. "And what would you know about struggle? You've had everything handed to you." For the first time, Ronaldo's calm broke into a faint smile, small, knowing, unshaken. "You think everything I have was handed to me? You know nothing about where I came from, about the nights I went hungry, about cleaning the streets as a boy just to help my family survive. Nothing was handed to me. Everything was earned." Victor froze, his words caught in his throat. The cafe murmured again, this time with admiration. Some clapped softly, unable to hold it in. Daniel looked up at Ronaldo, his eyes wide. The weight on his chest lifted slightly, as though someone had finally shared the burden he had carried alone. But Ronaldo wasn't done. He stepped closer to Victor's table now, his voice firm but never raised. "When you insult him, you insult every person who works harder than you'll ever understand. You insult decency. You insult respect." Victor swallowed hard, shifting uncomfortably, yet pride held him in place. "You talk big. But in the real world, kindness doesn't win. Power does." Ronaldo's gaze sharpened. "Power without kindness is weakness dressed in a suit." The words cut through the cafe like a blade. Even Victor had no quick reply. The silence that followed was not empty. It was filled with truth that no one could deny. Daniel's lips trembled as he whispered, almost to himself, "Thank you." Ronaldo gave the faintest nod, but his eyes never left Victor. The turning point had arrived. The storm was no longer waiting. It was here. The cafe air was heavy, as though every breath waited on what would happen next. Victor's jaw tightened, but his eyes betrayed unease. He looked around the room and saw every pair of eyes fixed on him, not with respect but with disgust. Ronaldo stood tall by his table. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm presence carried more weight than any shout could. "You measure people by money, by titles, by clothes," Ronaldo said, steady as stone. "But all I see is fear hiding behind arrogance, because only a weak man crushes others to feel strong." Victor tried to laugh, but it broke halfway. "You think you can lecture me? You don't even know me." Ronaldo leaned closer, his words precise. "I know enough. I know that when you look at him," he gestured to Daniel, who stood frozen by the counter, "you see someone smaller than you. But when the rest of us look at him, we see someone greater than you'll ever be." A ripple of agreement swept through the cafe. A few people nodded. A woman near the door whispered, "That's right." Victor's cheeks flushed red. He grabbed his phone as if hiding behind it, but his hands shook. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. He's just a boy wiping tables." Ronaldo's gaze sharpened, unblinking. "And yet he has more dignity in one smile than you have in your entire life." The cafe erupted, not in noise, but in silence deeper than before. Even the faint hum of the machines seemed to fade. Every word echoed, heavy and undeniable. Victor's mouth opened, but no words came out. His arrogance had met a wall too strong to climb. Ronaldo didn't let him look away. The world doesn't need more men in suits shouting at the powerless. It needs men who lift others up. Daniel shows up with kindness every day. That is strength. That is courage. That is what real respect looks like. Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears he could no longer hide. For the first time that afternoon, his smile wasn't forced. It was genuine, fragile, grateful. Victor shifted again, gripping the edge of the table, but his voice was gone. The customers weren't on his side. No one was. The room itself had turned against him. Ronaldo stepped back slightly, his final words cutting sharper than any insult. "You came here today thinking you were powerful, but now the entire room sees you for what you are, a coward. Remember this moment, because men are remembered not for the money in their pockets, but for the way they treat those who can't fight back." Victor's eyes darted across the cafe, searching for a lifeline. But there was none. The applause began softly, just one person clapping near the window. Then another, and another, until the entire cafe echoed with the sound. Daniel stood frozen, overwhelmed, as people clapped not just for Ronaldo, but for him, for his patience, for his strength, for his dignity. Victor lowered his gaze, the fight gone from his shoulders. He picked up his coat without a word. And for the first time since he entered, he walked quietly, head down, footsteps heavy toward the door. The cafe door closed behind Victor with a dull thud. The room remained still for a moment, as though everyone needed time to breathe again after the storm. Daniel stood by the counter, his cloth still in his hand, but his chest rose and fell quickly. His eyes glistened as he looked down, trying not to let the weight of it all crush him. Then the applause rose once more. Louder this time, warmer, not for Ronaldo alone, but for Daniel. Customers smiled at him, some even standing to make sure he saw. A woman near the window said gently, "You did nothing wrong. You handled yourself with grace." Daniel blinked, his lips trembling as he whispered, "Thank you." Ronaldo walked over, placing a hand on Daniel's shoulder. His voice was softer now, stripped of the edge it carried moments ago. "You're stronger than you know. Don't let people like him convince you otherwise." Daniel looked up at him, wide-eyed. I just wanted to do my job." "And you did it better than most," Ronaldo replied with a smile. "You showed patience when others would have lost control. That's real strength, Daniel, the kind the world doesn't see often enough." The cafe manager, who had been frozen in shock earlier, finally stepped forward. "Daniel, I'm proud of you. You showed more professionalism than I did. From now on, if anyone treats you that way, they'll have to answer to me first." Daniel nodded, wiping his eyes quickly with the back of his hand. Still overwhelmed, Ronaldo reached into his jacket and pulled out a small pen. "Do you like football?" he asked gently. Daniel's face lit up instantly. "Cristiano Ronaldo. I've watched every match. You're my hero." Ronaldo chuckled softly, signing the back of Daniel's apron. "Today you're the hero. Don't forget that." The cafe erupted in light laughter and more applause. The tension that had once suffocated the room now dissolved into something else. Hope, warmth, unity. Daniel hugged the apron close to his chest. For the first time that day, his smile wasn't just genuine, it was radiant. As the cafe returned to its rhythm, Ronaldo prepared to leave. But before stepping outside, he paused at the door and turned back. his gaze sweeping over the room. He spoke with calm conviction, his words carrying the weight of experience. Every person you meet is fighting battles you may never see. Some battles are visible, others are hidden. But kindness is always a choice. And when we choose it, the world becomes a little brighter. The customers listened in silence, some nodding, others holding back tears. Daniel stood tall behind the counter, apron pressed to his chest, his earlier pain slowly transforming into something deeper, pride. Ronaldo gave him a final nod, then stepped out into the world beyond, leaving behind more than just a signature. He left behind a reminder that true greatness isn't measured in trophies or fame, but in how we treat the people who need compassion most. The cafe door closed softly this time, but the impact of what had happened would echo for years in the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. And for Daniel, it was more than just a moment. It was proof that even in the face of cruelty, dignity and kindness would always triumph.